Plato had this famous idea, right, that states will only be happy when rulers become philosophers, or, philosophers become rulers.
Which is a great ideal.
Yeah, a total fantasy for most of history. But there's one person who maybe, just maybe, came close. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king.
It's a title he would have hated. Honestly, you would have rejected it on the spot.
Really?
Absolutely. The sources we have, they paint this picture of a man who was just completely overwhelmed by duty, by crisis. He saw himself as an imperfect student, just trying to apply these big ideas to hold the world together.
And that's where the Meditations comes in. It gives us this incredible window into his mind, and it was never, ever meant for us to read.
Not at all. It wasn't a manifesto or some public book. It was private. Just notes to himself, a kind of spiritual exercise book written in Greek during the absolute worst decade of his life. We're talking the 170s AD.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really get into the trenches of his mind. We want to find that core philosophical operating system Stoicism that let the ruler of the Roman Empire even function.
Function through what? Relentless war, a devastating plague, personal betrayals. It's an incredible story.
We've got the timeline of his life from 121 to 180 AD, and we have the brutal context for his reign. So we're not just listing concepts here. We're trying to figure out how he used this philosophy as a shield, maybe even a weapon against all that chaos.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with how he even got the job. Because Marcus Annius Verus, that was his birth name, was never supposed to be emperor. It was almost an accident.
It really was. His father died when he was young, so his grandfather raised him. He grew up in that senatorial, privileged class. A life destined for high office, sure, but not the imperial purple.
So what was the turning point?
The big moment comes in 137 AD. He's only 16. The emperor at the time, Hadrian, is getting old, has no children, and he picks his successor, a guy named Antoninus.
Okay.
But there's a condition, a really complex legal stipulation. Antoninus has to adopt Marcus. And not just him, he also has to adopt another younger boy, Lucius Verus.
Wow, so Hadrian was playing the long game. He was setting up the succession 2 generations down the line.
Exactly. That single act locks Marcus into the imperial dynasty. So when Antoninus finally dies in 161, Marcus becomes emperor. But not alone. He's co-regent with his adopted brother, Verus.
And his education, it must have been intense. You don't just groom an emperor by accident.
Oh, he was world-class. A rigorous bilingual education in both Greek and Latin rhetoric. That was the standard path for a Roman statesman.
And we know who his tutors were, right?
We do. Herodes Atticus for Greek, and a very famous orator, Marcus Cornelius Fronto, for Latin. Fronto was incredibly close to him, almost like a second father.
But there was some tension there.
A huge tension. Our sources, especially their letters, show Fronto getting more and more disappointed. Marcus started drifting away from rhetoric, the art of public persuasion. A very useful skill for a politician.
Super useful.
And moving deeper and deeper into philosophy.
Which to Fronto must have seemed like a total waste of time. Why meditate on some obscure philosopher when you should be practicing speeches for the Senate?
It tells you everything about Marcus's personality. He wasn't interested in popularity. He was obsessed with ethical consistency. And the best evidence for this is Book 1 of the Meditations.
Yeah, that part is so unique.
It is. It's basically an autobiographical thank you list. He goes through all the people in his life and lists the specific lessons he learned from them.
And some of them are so personal. He thanks his mother, Lucilla, for teaching him, reverence for the divine, her generosity.
Her inability not only to do wrong, but even to conceive of doing it. What a tribute.
It's incredible.
And then there's Junius Rusticus, the philosopher. He thanks him for introducing him to the lectures of Epictetus.
And this is huge, because Epictetus was a former slave.
Exactly. The most powerful man in the world is taking his core moral guidance from the teachings of a man who was once considered property. It shows you how Stoicism really valued wisdom over social status.
But his biggest role model seems to have been his adoptive father, Antoninus Pius.
Without a doubt. He praised him for his unwavering adherence to decisions, his indifference to superficial honors, and, this is key, his willingness to just take the blame, to take responsibility without complaining.
He gave him a blueprint for how to be an emperor.
A blueprint he would need from day one. Because the moment Marcus took power in 161, the Pax Romana, that long period of Roman peace, it basically just shatters.
His entire reign was just one crisis after another.
Nonstop. First, the Parthian War breaks out in the east. He sends his co-emperor Verus to handle that.
But the real disaster was what the troops brought back with them.
The Antonine Plague. We think it was probably smallpox, and it just decimated the empire. We can't overstate this. This wasn't just a bad flu season. It was a systemic shock that made Romans question everything. Their gods, their security, everything.
The numbers are staggering.
Horrific. It might have killed millions, maybe a quarter of the population in some places. It gutted the army. It crashed the economy. And right on the heels of that, he has to go fight the Marcomannic Wars on the northern frontier.
Which was this long, slow, bloody grind, not some glorious campaign.
Exactly. A slow and bloody succession of small-scale engagements against tribes like the Quadi and Marcomanni. He spent years of his life on the cold, muddy Danube frontier.
Living in a tent.
Literally. And then, as if that weren't enough, in 175, his best general, Avidius Cassius, revolts and declares himself emperor in the east.
Unbelievable.
So Marcus has to march his exhausted army across the empire to put down the rebellion. And on that trip, his wife Faustina dies.
So when you realize all this, you understand the meditations weren't written in some peaceful villa?
No, they were written in the field, fueled by exhaustion and anxiety. This wasn't a hobby. It was a survival kit.
Okay, so given that constant, crushing stress, the plague, the wars, the betrayal, it's so clear this book wasn't for leisure. It was a manual for survival. So how did this philosophical manual actually work?
Well, the sources are clear that for Marcus, philosophy wasn't an academic subject. It was a practical design for living. You know, a set of rules to deal with suffering, with hard choices, with death itself. It was the operating system for a human being.
And he boils it all down to one fundamental choice, a question he asks himself over and over: providence or atoms?
That's the core choice, yeah.
What's the real-world difference for an emperor watching his world fall apart?
It's everything. It's your entire worldview. On one side, you have the Stoic view, logos or providence. This means the universe is orderly, it's rational, it's governed by an intelligent force. You can call it nature or God or whatever.
If you believe that,
then your job is acceptance. Your job is to understand that whatever happens, even the horrible stuff, is part of a perfect cosmic plan.
okay, and the other side is atoms.
Right. That's the Epicurean view. The universe is just random. It's just atoms colliding in the void. There's no plan, no divine justice.
So if you believe that, then
Then all your anxiety is pointless anyway, because we're all just going to dissolve back into atoms. Oblivion is the only guarantee.
And Marcus, he clearly leans one way.
He leans heavily towards logos, towards providence. He acknowledges randomness, but he needs the order. Choosing providence gives him a reason to maintain his sense of duty, his social responsibility. It means his suffering has a purpose.
So he uses that idea of a rational world to build this practical framework, which he gets straight from Epictetus, the three disciplines.
Exactly, and it's all about focusing only on what you can actually control, which is basically just your own mind.
So what's the first one?
The first is the discipline of perception. This is about training your mind to see things as they really are, without adding your own emotional judgments or fears. He's constantly reminding himself that pain, for example, is just an impression.
Everything is just an impression. He quotes that, right?
He does, from a philosopher named Monimus the Cynic. The idea is, if you stop labeling an event as bad, you strip it of its power to harm you emotionally.
Okay. And the second?
The discipline of action. This is all about justice and unselfishness. For a Stoic, a rational human is a social human. We're all part of a community, so every single action you take should be aimed at the common good.
And for an emperor, that's a pretty direct instruction.
It's his entire job description. That's why he writes that famous line, to do harm is to do yourself harm. To do an injustice is to do yourself an injustice. It degrades you. Duty to others is everything.
And then there's the third one, which feels like the hardest, the discipline of will or acquiescence.
Yeah. This one is tough.
So if I'm already training my perception to just see the cold, hard facts, why do I also need this discipline of will to accept it? Where's the difference?
The difference is emotional. It's one thing to see the fact the plague is killing thousands of people. It's another thing entirely to emotionally accept that fact as somehow necessary or even good for the universe as a whole.
Wait, you're telling me he had to look at the plague that was destroying his army and killing his family and tell himself, this is good. This is what the cosmos needs right now.
That is the brutal, hardcore center of Stoicism. Yes.
Yeah.
That acceptance is what prevents you from falling into despair or questioning the grand cosmic plan.
That's a mental martial art.
It's the ultimate one. And it's where that incredible quote comes from. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
So whatever is blocking your path.
The plague, the war, the betrayal, that is your path now. That's the material you've been given to practice your virtue.
Okay, so he has this clear, logical framework, but when you actually read the meditations, it doesn't feel peaceful. It feels, I don't know, kind of dark and obsessive.
It is. The sources point out how repetitive it is. He's not exploring new ideas. He's just obsessively repeating and reframing ideas long familiar but imperfectly absorbed.
It sounds like a struggle.
A huge struggle. The number of times he reminds himself about death, about how everything is changing and temporary, it really points to a deep-seated anxiety. He's always quoting Heraclitus on Flux.
The river metaphor.
Yeah. Time is a river, a violent current of events, glimpsed once and already carried past us, and another follows and is gone. Nothing lasts.
And he uses these really raw physical reminders to keep himself grounded. The one that always gets me is yesterday a blob of semen, tomorrow embalming fluid ash.
It's philosophical shock therapy. It's designed to just annihilate your ego, your vanity.
And this leads to what I think is the central paradox in Marcus, this huge tension between his stoic duty to society and this deep, private disgust he seems to have.
Disgust with humanity, and even with his own body.
Yeah, the imagery is so dark. He calls the body rotting meat in a bag, or a mess of blood. How do you square that with having to act for the common good of other bags of rotting meat?
That's the key, I think. For Marcus, his social duty wasn't driven by, warm, fuzzy feelings for people. It was a logical deduction. He knew that even if people were foolish or arrogant or meddling, they were still part of the rational social fabric. The logos demanded he treat them with justice.
So the disgust was a tool.
Yes, a tool to achieve indifference, to not get emotionally thrown off course by their behavior.
Which is why he does that thing where he preps himself for the day by listing all the awful people he's going to meet.
Exactly. Meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He's not complaining. He's immunizing himself. He's expecting the worst, so it won't shock him.
It's a very defensive philosophy.
Oh, completely. He's constantly using military language. The mind is an invulnerable fortress. Life, for him, felt like a battle. His philosophy was his armor.
And it's so practical. The morning routine is basically a direct order to himself.
It is, and he does the same thing with luxury. He tries to strip away the cultural impression to see the raw reality, that famous example about food.
The roasted meat.
Yeah, he tells himself to look at it and just see what it is. This is a dead fish, a dead bird, a dead pig.
Yeah.
By seeing the dead thing, not the delicacy, you kill the desire for it. You achieve indifference.
So if we pull all this together, the ultimate goal for Marcus, and I guess for anyone reading him, was this state of total mental clarity, resilience.
Right. It was about focusing only on the few essential things, your actions, your judgments, and just ruthlessly letting go of everything else. Fame, what other people think, fear of death.
He was trying to find some kind of consistency in a world that was just pure chaos, to live a satisfying and reverent life, even in the middle of a war zone.
And the meditations are the record of that fight. A mind at war with itself every single day to achieve that clarity.
It's an amazing lesson in mental strength, but I want to leave you with one final thought, something that kind of complicates that perfect, logical fortress he was trying to build.
Okay.
We've established that the Stoic logos is impersonal, right? It's nature, it's cosmic intelligence. It's not a personal God who listens to your prayers.
Correct. Pure Stoicism is about accepting fate, not asking for divine favors.
And yet, at the very end of Book 1, after thanking all his human teachers, Marcus does something really strange. He gives this list of very personal, very specific thank yous to the gods. Plural.
Right, for concrete help, not abstract wisdom.
Exactly. He thanks them for remedies granted through dreams, when I was coughing blood, for instance, and having fits of dizziness. He even mentions a specific place, the one at Cayeta.
Which is a remarkable thing to find in that book. It's a real tension.
It is. If the whole point is to build this fortress of pure logic and accept an impersonal fate, why does the philosopher king end his list of life's lessons by thanking personal gods for sending him cures in his dreams?
It's like a crack in the armor.
It really is. It makes you wonder, you know? When he was actually on the frontier, coughing up blood, maybe pure logic just wasn't enough. Maybe the emperor needed a personal god more than the philosopher needed a cold cosmic logos. And that's something to think about as you navigate your own battles.